Okay, so Thomas Kuhn basically uh, did a giant table flip to the scientific community when he came out with his book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. Is quoted as, he single-handedly changed the way we think about mankind's most organized attempt to understand the world. What does that mean? So you guys are reading an article about Kuhn, but here are some take-home ideas from his book. So one is, Thomas Kuhn argued that science does not evolve gradually towards truth. So there was a previous understanding that science was like a linear progression forward. So basically like closer and closer and closer to defining truth of the universe. That kind of theory is sometimes linked to this word positivism, which is a philosophical theory that states that genuine knowledge is exclusively derived from experience of natural phenomena and their properties and relations. So basically like science can define everything and is like the end all be all to understanding the world around us. And Kuhn was like, actually, it's not so linear and progressive towards truth. It's sometimes like a little chaotic, and there are these like giant shifts in our understanding of things based on like a certain discovery. So his second point is that science has a paradigm, or if you think about like a set of goggles, which remains constant before giving through to a paradigm shift when current theories can't explain some phenomenon and someone proposes a new theory. It's a really great example of that. There's a ton of great examples of that in science, like Einstein's theory of relativity and a bunch of others. But I'm going to use Copernicus because Copernicus, he developed what he called the heliocentric model. So before Copernicus, it was like understood that was the paradigm that the Earth was the center of the universe, which is not. But that's how all other observations were explained, was through those goggles. So when we see the planets moving around, like in the stars, it was explained through the Earth being at the center, but it was confusing because we'd see these like loop-de-loops, these retrogrades, and it really couldn't. We couldn't define or understand that with these goggles of the Earth being the center of the universe. So Copernicus was like, actually, and he used these other goggles where the sun is the center of the universe, which is still wrong, but it's slightly more right because the sun is at least the center of our solar system and could explain the orbits of the planet a little bit better. So he actually thought that there were like spheres, like the Earth was in the middle, or sorry, the sun was in the middle, and then there were these like spheres at which the different planets were adhered to, and those spheres would like rotate around each other. Again, still wrong, but like has picked up a new pair of goggles. And then some other scientists like Kepler, he is Copernicus, like Kepler picked up and ran with too. So Kepler was another astronomer who's trying to explain the path of the planets, and he proposed that they were an elliptical path. But Kepler was also still super wrong because he thought that there was some kind of nested geometric shapes to explain that. So instead of the spheres I was being like where the planets rested on, he thought like, okay, maybe Venus is on this like pyramid and Mars is on this square. So these are like Pythagoras is going way too deep here. Anyway, the whole point of this is that Copernicus and Kepler were examples of what Kuhn calls a paradigm shift, in which a new paradigm is proposed that like totally upends things and like shifts us in a different direction. And that is happening all the time in science. And even sometimes these anomalous discoveries, like Darwin's theory of evolution, are disregarded and laughed at or criticized or swept under the rug or ignored. Because they are so outside of our paradigm, we're not able to accept them and incorporate them. And so Kuhn is a little bit critical in that way, that that by viewing science as this like linear progression forward, we're unable to then actually be able to like shift more easily when these like new pieces of information come in to our reality. I love Kuhn. I think this idea is awesome and amazing and possibly still wrong, right? So I think with all of this stuff, it's important to be a critical consumer of knowledge. So not just to like believe everything that you read and hear on face value, but to think about it a little bit deeper, to be critical of it, not in a bad way, just in a skeptical way, a scientifically skeptical way. And this also does not throw science under the bus either. It changes our view of how it works. What is science? What is science? We're not even talking about the purpose of science. We'll get into that later. So that is the journey that you hopefully have just gone on with your reading about Kuhn. And I will, I'm looking forward to seeing your reflections of what science means to you. And then also your Haikun copyright Quasar surprise. And I'll be writing my example here shortly. Enjoy.